Good afternoon, America. Welcome to the Got Freedom Podcast. We are live here in the We the People podcast studio. This is Chad Hummel. This is the Got Freedom Podcast on the We the People Podcast Network. Let's start by giving you a couple pointers like I always do, such as go to the We the People Podcast Network and on Facebook and become a member. Click like, become a subscriber. Also go over to our YouTube channel, the We the People Network on YouTube, and subscribe. Click like, and you'll get all the live updates from for our podcasters. We have several great podcasters on the We the People Podcast Network. First and foremost, there's our anchor podcast, Kimberly's Revolution. That's on Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Monday and Tuesday at 2:00, and then on Wednesdays at 4:00, as we call the big show. And we also have Jose Pio, who is a Rochester City Councilman, and he also has a podcast on here. Marcus Williams and Matt Fritz. These are all wonderful podcasters that are on our network. And if you become a member and you subscribe to our podcast network, you will get the live updates and you will be able to watch their awesome podcasts during the week. You can watch them live or, of course, go back at your leisure and watch. So without further ado, I want to thank our in-house producer here, Austin. Austin is here today. Austin will give us the usual thumbs up. There.
Hello.
There's Austin's. He's kind of like the Statue of Liberty over there. He just kind of stands there and sits there, I should say.
Yeah.
And his thumb is up, right?
Just all the time. That's
I'm gonna get a lighter.
That's how I did the show.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a lighter maybe and light your thum on fire.
There you go.
It'll kind of be like the Olympic torch.
Yeah, I can swing it back and forth like a concert.
Do they still do that? I think people use their phones now to do that.
Yeah, and it's super lame. Pull out a lighter.
I
bring
agree.
A Zippo. Just come on.
100%. That's a great point. There's certain things in life that I don't care what technology does to change. There's certain things that just should never go away, like a lighter at a concert, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
This whole idea of phones at concerts and turning your backlight on your phone or turning the flashlight on your phone, that's just stupid. That's lazy. Bring a lighter in.
Exactly. And don't film the concert either. Because why? Well, who is that for? Are you sharing that with friends? No one wants to watch your terrible concert video. Is it for you later? Are you watching that? Like, that concert,
Another great point. Yeah, you go on YouTube, right? And you find and you're searching for a certain song and you want to watch the artist play the song, and you'll wind up stumbling across somebody's homemade half-baked, can't even hear the sound, the acoustics are lousy, somebody's video from a Google Dolls concert.
They got their hand just over their microphone on the phone, so you got that going on.
Nice. Yeah, it's stupid. And while you're doing that, while you're recording it, you're missing out on what you came to see, right?
Exactly.
You came to
watch
listen.
the concert.
Yeah, watch and listen, and you're sitting there recording it. You're right. That's pretty stupid. See, we're really getting into the weeds here, aren't we? Very quickly we're getting into the weeds.
Always in the weeds.
Always in the weeds. Look at how nice those weeds look, all cut up.
Oh yeah.
I did a great job.
Yeah, good job. Just pay yourself on the back a little bit.
I think that pile's still sitting out in the parking lot too.
I think it's in the corner. It's fine.
You got to drive around it just to get into our parking lot here at the We the People Podcast Network.
Yeah, well, that's good. It keeps the riffraff out. You got to go around the weeds.
Exactly. All right. So hey, before we went on air, we were asking each other about our Labor Day weekends, and the topic digressed into RVs. You mentioned something about an RV, and I'm jealous. I want an RV. I don't have one, and I guess this is your RV. So
this is my RV.
Tell us more.
1977 Dodge Chinook.
I got
a
fish.
A Chinook.
A Chinook's a fish, isn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I have actually no idea.
Just go with it.
Yeah. But I got that thing off of Craigslist for $300.
Does it run?
It does run.
Wait, you got an RV that runs for $300?
Oh yeah. Oh, let me tell you that story real quick.
Wait, does it run on its own power, or do you have to push it? How does it work?
Yeah, no, it's actually, we cut out the bottom. It's just like Flintstone style.
I love it.
No, so I saw it on Craigslist. It was listed for $800. And I'd been looking for one of these for a while, and I saw it was $800. I was like, all right. So I hit the guy up. I asked him, like, does it run? Like, what's the situation with this thing? And the guy hit me back. He's like, yeah, no, it runs. You might have to like hot start the battery or whatever, but it'll run. I was like, all right. Can I take a look at it? He's like, yeah, come on over. Just when you arrive, just knock on the back door.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
The back door of the RV?
Of the RV.
Oh boy.
Yeah. Turns out.
Were you taking the guy's home away from him?
Well, I guess, because when I got there, I walked up to the RV. There's a little paper sign on it. Please knock. And I was like, all right. I knock on the door. And I just hear, hold on a minute, I gotta get the cats.
Oh boy. If I had thought about it, I probably could have predicted that.
Yeah.
That there'd be cats part of this story.
Oh, absolutely. So the door opens and this like Cheech and Chong billow of smoke comes out the back door. And I look in, and the lady who was gathering the cats is like, I got them. And it was a guy and his wife, and they're like, oh, we gotta sell this RV. We gotta be out of here by Monday. And I was like,
so where are these people living now? In their tent?
I assume. I don't know. It turns out I didn't ask. I was like, all right, wherever you end up, I guess.
How many cats can you fit in a 2-person pup tent?
At least 4.
At least 4.
I based on how many they had in this RV.
So when did this all go down? How long have you owned this RV now?
I've owned it about 3-4 years.
Oh wow! And you travel in it?
I've gone camping in it a few times. I'm just poor, so I can't afford to go camping as much as I'd.
Yeah, but that's what an RV's for, right?
Exactly.
You don't have to.
Well, you still need campsite or whatever.
Yeah, that's true. You got to hook up.
Yeah, it's it does have you plug it right in. It's got power.
Electric.
I went to Walmart, got like a $60 TV. One of those 32-inch. It was on clearance. It was great.
Yeah. Well, that's great.
Oh yeah.
Love it.
But
RVing it's a beautiful thing. You get out there in the great wide open, see the world.
Oh, dude, and they were asking 800, but I was like, I got $300 in my pocket.
And they took it.
And I said, if I can see it running, I'll give you $300 for it. And they're like, but we wanted 800. I was like, but you got to be out of here by Monday. So
I would have given them 400 had they thrown in at least one cat.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah,
sure.
It would have taken a cat though.
Honestly, the biggest 400. Expense with this thing so far was the we use this stuff called Awesome. Have you ever seen that like cleaning supply?
No.
It's like a yellow liquid. I don't know what it's made of, but
it gets rid of cat piss.
Yeah, and nicotine.
Oh,
like when we put it on the ceiling, and I fixed it up with my dad, and we just watched we sprayed it, and like just brown ooze came out of the ceiling. And there was green shag carpet all over the walls. We totally redid all that.
Oh wow!
Took out the beds, built our own.
I heard green shag carpet is on its way back though. So
I know, and we got rid of it.
Should have kept that.
Well, you know what? I would get some new green shag carpet. I don't trust that like cat piss.
That's a good point.
Shag carpet.
It sounds like the walls were maybe the cat's permanent scratching post there.
It probably.
So I looked up, I was right. And of course there's also the Chinook helicopters in the military, but yeah, the Chinook salmon this of course is courtesy of Google.
Yes, I have heard of those.
The Chinook salmon is the largest species of Pacific salmon, as well as the largest in the genus. I'm going to not be able to pronounce that word, the Oncorhynchus. Its common name is derived from the Chinookan peoples. So there you have it.
Oh, it kind of looks like a salmon if you close your eyes.
No, you know what? I think it actually, if you zoom in, and my eyes are horrible, but I think there's a salmon emblem there on the side of it. No,
I don't think so. I think
I would have stripe there. Oh no,
I think I would have seen a salmon on it.
Look, the C. I think the C in Chinook there is.
Oh, I think it's just faded. It was like a cursive C,
Gotcha.
Before, and at some point I'm gonna the creative
side of my mind, which is very, 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 very tiny. I see a salmon there being hooked by a fishing rod and reel.
Oh,
that's what I see in the sea.
Yeah, no, I never
See?
would have seen that, but
Come
now that
on.
you say it,
And you're supposed to be the artistic one, sitting over there running the podcast studio here for us.
Oh, is that what I am?
Yeah,
all right.
I see you as the artistic side of things here.
Oh, that's good to know. I hadn't heard that.
I guess I got to teach you something here.
All right,
about Chinook salmon.
You know what? Just for you, when I finally paint this thing, I'm just going to paint a salmon on a fishing line.
You better.
Right on the hood.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You could call it the Chinook.
There you go.
All right. So on to more boring topics. Unfortunately, that was pretty good. I'm glad we got that out of the way. I love RVs. Someday that's going to be that's one of the things on my, I don't want to say a bucket list, right? People usually think of a bucket list and they think of things that they affirmatively want to do before they die. But on my bucket list of things to own and enjoy while I'm still on this side of the dirt, an RV is definitely on the list.
It's the best way to travel.
Dave Salamone says you can bring weed, but you have to smuggle the lighter. That's great. What an excellent point. Dave Salamone, he's like our resident make a great point, right on point listeners and followers. So that's an excellent point. Of course, Dave's referring to something that we talked about 5 minutes ago. I'm sure he probably posted that 5 minutes ago, but I didn't see it. But we were talking about how you should bring a lighter into a concert and not your stupid cell phone. And Dave, of course, aptly points out that you're allowed to bring weed into a concert, but you would probably have to smuggle the lighter in. So excellent point. Eric lives in a van down by the river. Also an excellent point. That's actually on my bucket list too, Eric. I someday definitely want to live in a van down by the river. Of course, that's a reference to the late great
Chris Farley.
Thank you. Oh my God. I probably did embarrass myself by not coming up with that right away. Of course, Chris Farley, phenomenal actor. There's an RV place in Victor. Yeah, there's lots of RV places around. So, in fact, I've stopped at that one in Victor. As many of you know, one of the many hats that I wear is I have a tax assessment business. So I'm an attorney, general practice law. I own a real estate company, Revere Realty, and I also have a private consulting company where I help residential property owners challenge their tax assessment. And often in my business, I travel out to Victor. I do a lot of tax assessment hearings out in Victor, and I go by that RV place all the time. And I've stopped in there many times just to kind of, pop in and check out the RVs. So one of these days I'll pop in and maybe drop down a deposit or something. We'll kind of wait and see. All right. So like I said, on to more boring topics. There's two main topics I want to touch on today. One is more of a national issue that, it's local too, I guess, because we're all having to deal with it. I shouldn't say all, but many of our neighbors, friends, family, colleagues are dealing with the vaccine mandates, the impending terminations, the impending firings, the strong arming, if you will, that's going on at the local and national level when it comes to the vaccine mandate. And then the second topic that I want to talk about is predominantly a local issue. I imagine it's also a national issue. I imagine that across the country, there are other individuals, other school districts dealing with this issue, but locally here, it's been a big issue of late, and that is the busing situation and the fact that, and I know it's changing every day. So quite honestly, I could be 24 hours behind the news report on this, but the last I had heard, the Rochester City School District, where we're at here in Rochester, New York, the Rochester City School District will not be opening at the high school level except for virtual appearance at the start of the school year, which I believe is tomorrow. So starting tomorrow, the Rochester City School District will go back to school as normal. And by as normal, I mean with high levels of truancy, with high levels of dropout rates, with high levels of non-graduation rates, and things like that. But with that said, the Rochester City School District will go back to school tomorrow, except for grades 9 through 12. And the reason there is because apparently the inability or the lack of transportation by big yellow vehicles on wheels. Well, you know what, Austin? I just thought of a phenomenal idea.
Oh, yeah?
What the hell's the Chinook doing right now?
Oh, look,
How many people does this Chinook fit? I know it holds 2 old people who don't know that we have light bulbs, that the light bulb was invented, and 4 cats.
Yes.
But does it hold school-age children in high school in the Rochester City School District?
If I'm just, taking them somewhere, I could probably fit like 8.
Well, do you know what the government pays to transport? I mean, it's millions, tens of millions of dollars.
Have you seen like the incentives they're offering for the Rochester bus drivers now?
I have not, but I can't even imagine.
I
$35 an hour.
I think I heard it was 30, and a $2,000 bonus if you stay on for 6 months.
Isn't that absurd? I could go on so many tangents on this topic. I mean, there's the unemployment issue, right? I mean, all we have here is that private business, and of course, the Rochester City School District is not in private business, but in order to make this analogy, it fits, and that is this: in order for any employer, let's say, right? Let's forget about private business. In order for any employer to keep up with the inflation that the government has created and caused due to its unemployment policies, they have to pay far more than a normal capitalistic market would ever bear out, right? It's just math. I'm going to say you people, right? You people, you progressives out there, I know there's probably one of you listening at least. The rest of you are in line collecting your unemployment check right now. You progressives out there, one of your holy grails, of course, is the right to work, the right to live, the right to this, everything's a right? Everything's an entitlement. Well, you got what you want now, right? You want people to be paid a minimum wage or a living wage, right? Minimum wage isn't good enough, so then you change the term of art to a living wage. And your opinion is that people don't get paid enough. And the reason why people don't get paid enough is because corporate America is such an evil, nasty thing, and that capitalism is such an evil, nasty thing. But the way things work is just basic, relativity, right? Everything is relative to the other. So you can raise minimum wage up as high as you want. You could take it from $7 an hour to $9 an hour to 11 to 15 to 23. Take it to 25. Take it to $25 an hour. Pick whatever number you want, right? You think you know better about how a market should work and a society should be free. So pick whatever salary you want. Let's call it $25 an hour. And then guess what happens? And this is just a fact. This isn't some evil conservative theory, right? This is just simple math and science that you profess. What do you think McDonald's, who now is forced to pay $25 an hour, what do you think they have to charge for that Happy Meal? What do you think Wegmans has to charge for a loaf of bread? What do you think the truck drivers have to get paid in order to transport those goods across country? How much do you think the price of gasoline is going to cost at that point? So as you increase the so-called living wage to a number that you feel comfortable with, the cost of business goes up. The only way you can ever have and this, by the way, Austin, wasn't one of the 3 topics I was going to touch on, but of course, I digress. That's another possible show name in the future. We have In the Weeds with Chad Hummel, and we could also have I Digress with Chad Hummel. But as it is, we're going to stick with Got Freedom. So, you keep increasing that number. The only way that you're ever going to get to your social utopia that you think is on the horizon is when you mandate everything, right? See, the problem is that the people that advocate for these things, and I'm not saying this to be mean or nasty, because again, I believe, in my opinion, that what I'm telling you is just simple fact. It's just simple math, right? 1 + 1 = 2, no matter what your politics are. So the part that people don't understand that advocate for living wages and minimum wages and $25 an hour and whatever number you want, the other part of the equation that you're missing is that you're not mandating what the cost of goods are going to be. So to take your philosophy of mandating a living wage to its logical conclusion, the only way it's going to work, because what you really want is equality, as you say. You want everyone to be equal, right? Equally poor, of course. not equally wealthy or equally affluent. You want everyone to be equally poor, because that's the actual result of these financial policies that you're looking to implement. But without mandating what the cost of goods is along the lines of mandating what the wage is going to be for the laborer or the worker, you are never going to meet that goal of equality that you claim. Now, if you're being honest, which first and foremost you would have to know better, but if you knew better and you were being honest, then what you would also have to advocate for, and by you advocating for it, what I really mean is Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and all of your gods that you worship. What Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden, what all of your heroes would have to advocate for, but see, now they're smart enough to know not to advocate for this, is they would have to put caps on what businesses could charge for goods and services, period. So take the minimum wage from $15 an hour to $25 an hour, and then you have to correspondingly tell McDonald's that they can't charge more than $7.95 for a Happy Meal. And you have to tell Dick's Sporting Goods that they can't charge more than $129.99 for that pitching wedge, right? Because you can make all the money you want, but if it costs you just as much, if not more, per capita, so to speak, for the goods and services that you're used to consuming, what is your net income at the end of the day? What is your net? What's the term I'm looking for? Your disposable income, I guess, is the terminology I'm looking for. What is your net disposable income at the end of the day if you make more money, but you're obligated, so to speak, to spend more money? Because without government caps on goods and services pricing, then myself as the business owner who expends my own capital, my own time, my own labor, right? That's, of course we make a joke about that picture of myself in the weeds, but that's me trimming my own bushes, right? That's me expending my own time, my own labor, my own capital. There we are. So I'm very happily with a big smile on my face. I paid for those clippers, right? That ladder, I think I stole from somebody. But that equipment is mine, right? I purchased that equipment. I acquired that equipment. And let's say I went to Home Depot to acquire it. Home Depot charged me, let's say, $49.99 for that ladder. But if you force Home Depot to pay its employees $25 an hour, which of course exponentially increases all of their labor costs, right? Because there are many things that employers are obligated to provide, according to New York state law, for example, are a percentage of what they're making, unemployment rates, workers' comp rates, everything that an employer is obligated to provide on your behalf, that all goes up. That all goes through the roof. And now instead of the ladder being $39.99, the ladder is $49.99 and then $59.99. That's called inflation, people. It's a real thing, right? Inflation is, again, it's not some conspiracy. It's not a Republican conservative conspiracy that's thrown out there on the campaign trail. It's a real thing. It's truly a mathematical, scientific theory that plays out in a free market system. So, but let's face it, again, if you're being honest, if you know better and you're being honest, you don't want a free market system. The progressives, they do not want a free market system. They want a government-run system. The problem is that they don't even know how to get where it is that they're trying to get. And in order to get there, maybe that's when it would slap them in the face and they would realize that what they're advocating for is no good, because what they're advocating for will lead to tyranny, which is where we're headed, right? We're seeing it as we speak. It will lead to socialism, which then leads to communism. And then that leads to, one or two people or a very small select few of people being in charge of all the goods and services, right? They will be very wealthy individuals. They will have tremendous amount of power over you and I, and we will all be equal. I will be equal to you. You will be equal to me. We will all be equally poor, right? We'll all be equal. We'll all get the same living wage, and we'll all be told what we can spend our money on, when we can spend it, where we can spend it, how we can spend it. And that's not freedom, right? And this is the Got Freedom podcast. So we like freedom. We want to have freedom. We don't want to have socialism. I don't want the government telling me how much I have to pay somebody else any more then I want to be told how much I have to charge you for those goods and services. It's as simple as that. All right. Well, I'm glad we got that out of the way. We solved the whole economic crisis in the United States of America. So now we'll move back on to what I said I was going to talk about, and that is the vaccine mandates and the busing issue in the city of Rochester. So let's go backwards in light of what I just got done talking about. I was going to touch on the vax mandates first, but I think this busing situation in the city of Rochester is a little bit akin to what I just talked about, and on a different level, so to speak. In other words, I was just talking about government control as it plays out in the financial sector, and now I want to talk about government control as it plays out in kind of the more personal social sector, and that is our school districts and busing and your children and things like that. So we'll just take a brief water break here. If you don't mind, everybody grab their water, grab your lighters, grab your water. Again, this is Chad Hummel, and I thank you for joining me. We're on hold on, I always forget that part where I have to adjust my camera. We're on the We the People podcast network. This is Got Freedom, Chad Hummel with Got Freedom on the We the People podcast network. And we'd appreciate it if you go to our network on Facebook and on YouTube and become a subscriber, become a member of those two entities, and you'll get all the live updates of when all of our podcasts go up. And of course, you can always watch them on your old free time too. Plug in your Bluetooth, listen to us in your car as you're driving down the road. It's just kind of like FM and AM radio in that regard. So, all right. So busing in the city school district. Look, I know this is getting tired and old, but I'm going to get into the weeds on this topic because, again, this is all fundamental stuff, and people get so far down the wrong road that you can never come back, right? What I like to tell people over the years is this: when you're on the wrong road, you're never going to come to the right answer. If you're on the wrong road, you're always going to be choosing between what's wrong and what's wronger. Right? If that's a word, what's less wrong and what's more wrong. The bottom line is you are never going to reach the right answer on the wrong road. I believe that. And with this busing situation in the city school district, and again, I know this is statewide and nationwide too, but with this busing situation right now in the city of Rochester, all of the decisions and all of the discussions that are being had are, in my opinion, revolving around solutions that are government-based. Well, I have one simple question. Why do people continue to rely upon and clamor for government solutions to government-created problems? Think about that, right? If the government is the entity that created the problem, why would you look to them for the solution? They are the problem in the first place. And if we back up a step or two, though, somebody like me, and I wasn't around when public busing began, right? And I can't sit here and pretend to know all the logistics and the specifics of how it went down 30, 40, 50 years ago. But I do know that if you just resort to basic common sense and basic fundamental principles of freedom and liberty, you can usually get to the answer on something. So I imagine that somebody like me 50 years ago, when public busing was maybe first tabled, I would have said something like, well, why do you want to rely upon the government to provide busing? And then, of course, everybody stands up and says, oh, because it'll be so much easier. Oh, because all of our kids can ride the bus together. Oh, because we can pool our resources together. Oh, because. And my response probably would have gone something like this. Well, no, be careful, because if you allow the government to provide something that you should provide for yourself, number one, it's going to end up costing a lot of freaking money, right? And as we just talked about earlier, and Austin pointed out, the price to get your children to school vis-a-vis the government, vis-a-vis these big yellow school buses, is absolutely preposterous. It's overinflated. It's out of control. And quite frankly, it's the reason why we're in this predicament, because the government can't find a solution to busing. So their answer to the problem is to spend more of your dollars, right? It's always easy to spend somebody else's money, isn't it? So back to, 50 years ago. And again, I'm just using 50 years ago as a reference point. I've been using 50 years ago as a reference point for about 20 years now. So I should probably change that to 70 at some point, I imagine, because I'm not getting any younger, as the mirror reminds me every morning. So, but here's the issue. I would have said, don't give the government that control, right? Put your darn kid in the car and drive your darn kid to school yourself, right? You already own a vehicle. You already pay for the insurance on the vehicle. Chances are you live somewhat close to your school, your child's school. Take your kid to school. And I know I'm the bad guy. I'm the mean guy. Well, I have to work. Well, I have 2 jobs, 3 jobs. Mom's got to work. Dad's got to work. Everybody's got to work. Well, that's a whole nother show topic, but maybe mom wouldn't have to work. Maybe dad wouldn't have to work 3 jobs if we didn't have to pay school bus drivers $35 an hour to get your kids to school. You see how this shit works? It's all circular, right? The more you clamor for government control and government solutions, the more it impedes upon your personal liberty, which causes you to have to work more, to make more, to spend more, and give it to the government so they can spend more, right? And I know I don't want to be, that nostalgic guy that says, let's go back to the 50s where everything was simple, right? Where we had black and white TVs and there was only one car in the driveway and all that. I'm not saying it has to be like that, but it also doesn't have to be like this. It doesn't have to be that something so simple, such as putting your children in the car next to you, right? Everybody's got an SUV nowadays. Everybody's got a truck, right? Everybody's got a car. We can't argue anymore that poor Johnny's mother can't afford a vehicle. You can't argue that anymore because poor Johnny's mother has an iPhone 15. I don't, right? As I'm out there cutting my own bushes. Cut your costs. Cut your costs if you don't like it, right? But everybody's got a car nowadays. We have Uber. We have everything, right? We have everything from a technological standpoint that you clamored for all these years. Everything is there to solve the problem. Except we don't hear a single private solution to this government-created problem. All I keep hearing is, why can't we get more bus drivers? Why can't we get more school buses? Why can't the superintendents? Why can't the government? Why can't the local government, the state government, the federal government? Why can't the government fix this problem with more bus drivers and more buses and more this and more that? Maybe because they can't. I know they shouldn't, right? You can decide whether they can or can't. I know that they shouldn't. They shouldn't have anything to do with this solution because they're the problem in the first place, right? I mean, if you go to your doctor to operate on your left hand and he cuts your right hand off, are you going back to that doctor? Are you going to go to any doctor at that point, quite frankly? I guess you'll have to go find a doctor to sew your right hand back on. But why? Why do we continue to clamor for government solutions to such a simple private problem? Why is the issue right now? And I'm not here to pick on anybody, but even the so-called conservatives in local media, and I guess the conventional wisdom, Austin, is that you're not supposed to mention people that would be considered your competitors in the industry, but I mean, quite frankly, I don't think I have enough followers to be anyone's competitor. But what? But even Bob Lonsberry, right? I mean, everybody knows who Bob Lonsberry is. He's on Wham 1180, and Bob he does an awesome show. He really does. Bob, in my opinion, has tremendous wisdom and insight. That's what I like and appreciate about Bob Lonsberry is I like his wisdom and his insight on 99% of the topics he talks about. There are many things that I just completely disagree with him on. And a lot of times I think he does some grandstanding and playing both sides of the fence. But the reality is he's in a business where there's a lot of advertising dollars, and his salary, I'm certain, is generated by those marketing dollars. So, he has to look out for himself, and that's human nature, and there's nothing wrong with that. But, what really bothers me on this busing situation is I've listened to him 2 or 3 times now talk about this situation, and he keeps playing into the same game that I think is the issue. That's the problem. He keeps playing this game of asking, what's the solution from the school district standpoint? What's the solution from the administration, the Rochester City School District administration standpoint? And he has the ear of many more people than I do. I wish he would put this premise out there, the premise that I just espoused. I wish he'd put that premise out there that why can't you just drive your kids to school? I mean, really, if you really truly want your children to go to school, then wouldn't you really truly wake up in the morning and put gas in your car and start the car and drive your kid to school? That would eliminate the problem, wouldn't it? I mean, it seems pretty darn simple. I don't know how I could be missing something here. Eric Nagel says, is there a bus union? I bet if they said they were going to back drivers not needing to get the needle, $20. I'm not sure if I can follow what he's saying there, Austin.
I think he's saying if they don't require vaccines, they'd be able to pay $20 an hour. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. What I do know, though, is there's no question that COVID has something to do with this, right? Because otherwise, I mean, tell me, I'm a pretty black and white type of guy, and sometimes that does not serve me well. But I think the vast majority of time, common sense wins the day, and common sense is usually a black and white proposition, in my opinion. So if you can't simply explain to me why parents can't put their kids in the car and drive them to school, then there has to be some illogical reason why we're in this position. And the illogical reason would have to be centered around COVID, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure that unless you're dead, you've heard of COVID. And if you died, it probably wasn't of COVID, despite what your death certificate might say. But nonetheless, I digress and get into the weeds again. COVID is running the world right now. It's running politics. It's running our social circles. It's forcing people to do medical things that have no rational relationship to COVID itself, in my opinion. So there's no question that COVID has a role in this, right? I mean, who's been the biggest proponent of keeping schools virtual and keeping kids safe from COVID, right? Quote unquote, safe from COVID. That's been the New York State Teachers Union. And, who has politically speaking, from a political capital standpoint, who has probably the least capital? The cities, right? The Democrats, the kind-hearted, warm-hearted Democrats, right? The progressives that, the conservatives are the racists, right? The Republicans are the racists. But guess what? The suburban schools are all going to open up tomorrow. The ones that haven't opened up already. And they're all going to have buses. And their kids are going to get on the buses and go to school. And guess which district, the kind-hearted people, the one that the districts across New York State, like Syracuse and Rochester and Buffalo, those districts that are run by those kind-hearted progressives, guess whose kids aren't going to get to go to school? Those ones. That's right. That's right. And quite frankly, let me, just to be factually correct, I don't even know that there's any other district other than Rochester that's in this predicament. So let's just simply focus on Rochester. And who backs the Rochester City School District? 1,010%. That, of course, would be the New York State Teachers Union, right? The New York State Union of Teachers, NYSUT, NYSUT. You got to love acronyms. Everything's an acronym in this world. Those people are running the show, and my wife's been a teacher for 20 years, so I get the NYSUT magazine every month. Well, she does, and I take it and read it. It's always good to keep your friends close and your enemies closer. So I read NYSUT, and for the last 18 months, all I've read in NYSUT is masks, vaccines, close, virtual learning, virtual. That's all it is. If you don't believe me, go find a NYSUT magazine. Go find a cover of a NYSUT magazine that hasn't had a 5-year-old African-American girl with a mask on the front cover in the last 18 months. You find me that cover of NYSUT that doesn't have that depiction on it, right? And I'll show you Sports Illustrated. Well, they probably have the same thing. So anyway, was that funny or no, Austin?
It made me chuckle.
We need like a laugh track or something here.
Yeah, I'll get that going.
The only thing that sucks worse than a bad joke is a good joke. Nobody laughs at either one of them.
All right,
That must have been a good joke. You laughed.
Yeah. Well, I'll get some sound effects.
Yeah, let's get some sound effects going here. Something preferably that won't get us into a lawsuit over proprietary rights or something.
Yeah, don't worry, I got you.
Yeah, I don't know any good lawyers. So
hey,
another terrible joke, right? By a lawyer. Do you know how you can tell if a lawyer's lying?
His mouth's moving.
Their lips are moving.
Hey,
Yeah.
whoa.
Do you know what they call 50,000 lawyers at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean?
No, what?
A good start.
Oh man, you just got lawyer jokes for days.
We are on a roll today. On that note, I'm going to grab another sip of this mini spring water from Wegmans, right? Wegmans is not one of our sponsors, but nonetheless, maybe they will be someday.
Yeah.
It should be.
Wegmans. Danny, give us a call.
Danny, are you listening? I do appreciate that Danny doesn't make me wear a mask when I go into his store. I don't believe Danny gives two shits about my politics, and I believe that if anyone's in bed with New York State government, Danny's probably in 4 or 5 of those beds with New York State government. But I do have to give him credit. Danny Wegman has stood on the side of medical freedom so far. I don't like the fact that he's requiring his employees to wear masks right now. It's certainly nothing but a charade, as 80% of the customers walk around the store without a mask on. But anyway, so I don't know. I probably beat the horse to death on the busing in the city of Rochester. I just, again, it drives me batshit crazy. Speaking of batshit and COVID, no, it drives me batshit crazy that we allow, not that we allow, that we clamor as a society for government solutions when we live in a free country, right? You just can't have it both ways. Again, I'm a black and white guy. Freedom is freedom is freedom. Liberty is liberty is liberty. And government control is none of those things. It just isn't, right? Tom Morgan, of course, from the Kimberly's Revolution. Just Tom, as Kimberly would say. Tom loves when I point out quotes from Thomas Paine. And I've been known on the Kimberly's Revolution, much to Kimberly's chagrin, I've been known to grab my Thomas Paine works of art and just read quotes right from Thomas Paine. But I'm probably going to butcher it right now because I don't have my Thomas Paine book in front of me. But one of Thomas Paine's famous quotes, and of course, last week was the history lesson, but Thomas Paine was, one of the early American patriots. Thomas Paine, by pretty much all historians of the time, Thomas Paine is credited as being one of the vocal, he wasn't a military guy, but one of the vocal ringleaders of the American Revolution. He published what at the time they were called pamphlets, which is probably the modern day equivalent of one of my Facebook rants. So back then, Thomas Paine published pamphlets to the American colonies where he basically criticized Great Britain and called them out on their hypocrisies. And, one of the things that Thomas Paine wrote was that government, even in its best state, is but a necessary evil. So, and that's so true, right? Cliches, I always say cliches are cliches for a reason, because they're true, right? So what Thomas Paine said rang true at the time, and it still rings true. We need government, yes, but only a limited government to prevent tyranny, right? The government's job has always been and should be, but is no longer in our society. The government's job is to provide universal protection, so to speak, from our foreign enemies, okay? Infrastructure, roads, bridges, okay? That's really it. What else do you really need the government for? Because you have to, whether you agree ultimately with my point or not, what you do have to admit is every time you turn one more thing over to the government, it's two things. It costs more money, which takes away your freedom, and it's one more rule, regulation, law, mandate, executive order. It's one more person telling you to do one more thing that you otherwise are not required to do. you're not obligated to do in a free society where you have the freedom of choice. So government, even in its best state, is nothing but a necessary evil. Because obviously the opposite would be, if there's no government, then you have anarchy, right? Nobody wants anarchy. But there has to be some sort of middle ground. And by middle, I mean, far, 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 far right of center. That's what I mean by middle. So, that's where we're at, right? I mean, freedom is freedom, and anything that takes away from freedom is just one more, chip away, right? There's this big, huge rock called the United States Constitution that was given to us in 1776, right? Essentially, right? It was obviously the states ratified it later on, and the last state didn't ratify it until years later, but you get the point. So we were given this big, huge boulder called freedom, called the Constitution. The first time that the history of the world had ever seen a document such as this. And it's not the piece of paper, of course. It's the principal underpinnings of the document and the ideas of the founding fathers. And it wasn't just their ideas, right? They took their ideas from hundreds and thousands of years of history and philosophers like John Locke, etc. So they gave us this big block, this big rock, I should say, a couple hundred, almost 300 years ago. And we've literally allowed bureaucrats and politicians and lobbyists to chip it away, right? A little bit at a time. And if you only chip away a little bit and 95% of people at the time say, it's just a little bit, that's not really going to hurt, right? Again, I know this sounds cliche. The slippery slope is obviously what I'm espousing here. But take a big boulder, right? Or take a big piece of wood with a carving knife and whittle away at it. And yeah, of course, it's only a sliver at a time. But do one sliver a day for the next year. Do one sliver a day for the next year. Gather your kids around a big, piece of wood and grab their pocket knives, show them how to whittle, right? You're probably going to have to Google that, what whittling is, if you weren't a Boy Scout. But Google that and whittle a piece of, just a little sliver, right? Just a tiny sliver. That's just a tiny sliver. It's just a mask, right? 14 days to flatten the curve. It's just a regulation, right? It's just a school bus. I mean, it's for our betterment, right? To have school bus. It's just a little bit. It's just a 5 cent increase on the taxes. It's on the gasoline tax. It's just a little sliver, right? Whittle a sliver off of that piece of lumber and do that once every day for the next 365 days and see what you have left. Let me know. Let me know if that piece of lumber, which used to be the Constitution of the United States of America, let me know one sliver at a time if it's still around in 365 days. Get back to me on that. I'll still be here waiting for your answer. All right. Last but not least, we only have about 10 minutes left, but and you probably don't want to hear much more than 10 minutes on this topic anyway. We're all pretty damn sick of it. But the vaccine mandates. So I have received no less than 30 phone calls just in the past 7 days. I've been able to return maybe half of them at most. So if anyone's out there listening that, that's waiting to hear back from me, honestly, I'm just being honest. I might not be able to get back to you. Hopefully you'll hear this. I'm doing my best to get back to everybody. On top of the phone calls, it's the Facebook. I know I've kind of, I've interjected myself out there. I've put myself out there. I've kind of asked for this. So I want to do my best to try to help you out and answer your questions. But here's where we're at right now. My understanding is, and I apologize if I have the date wrong, but I think it's the 27th. I believe on September 27th, that's kind of the deadline that's out there for the nursing industry, for example. I did speak with a teacher today. I believe the teachers are up against the same sort of situation. But basically on the 27th, you're being told that if you are not vaccinated, then your job is gone. So, and again, I'm a lawyer, and so people will call and they want some silver bullet. They want a magic answer. They want me to cite them the specific law where it says somewhere in a code that they cannot do this to you. And if there's a lawyer out there that tells you, other than the Constitution, generally that that they can prevent this from happening, then they're either uneducated or they're blowing smoke up your ass because, this is all new to them and to me. This is all you can do. This is not legal advice. And I say that seriously and at the same time, tongue in cheek, but this is not legal advice because, again, like I just said, there's really no legal answer to this. It's just really my personal opinion, and it's my strategy for you. It's what I would use if I was in your situation. Luckily, I'm not. Luckily, I just need to go outside and make sure the weeds get trimmed every once in a while in order to keep my job. So not just nursing, all healthcare employees. That's correct. Yeah, I might have mentioned nursing. Of course, thank you, Eric. I did not mean to pigeonhole the nurses. It's the doctors. It's everybody. Any staff. Any staff at the hospital, right down to the janitors, right? Everybody, the receptionists, the janitors, the nurses, the techs, the X-ray techs, the doctors, the surgeons. So it's everybody. And you're being told that your job's gone if you don't get vaccinated. Now, I could go off on 3 or 4 or 5 or 100 different angles to this, such as, nobody can even prove that the vaccine's effective from the standpoint of what people believe it to be effective for, right? We now know, because even the experts will admit, that the vaccine does nothing to prevent transmission of the virus, right? It does nothing. So whether you're vaccinated or not, you're still just as likely to transmit the virus. So what's the point? So why fire people that are unvaccinated? So you leave the vaccinated behind who transmit the virus unmasked. I mean, explain that. Explain that to me logically, medically, scientifically, hashtag science, hashtag this, hashtag go screw yourself, right? So here's my advice. 3 words. 3 simple words. Hold the line. Period. Hold the line. And this is why. No, Greg, Tom does not trim the weeds. That's on my clock. Tom does do a lot. He does everything else. I trim the weeds. It's kind of a non-thinking type of job, which fits right into my wheelhouse. But yeah, no, I'm the weed trimmer. Greg, that's Greg Helmer, Canandaigua National Bank, great banker. If you need any banking, I highly recommend. Shameless plug here. I highly recommend Mr. Helmer over at Canandaigua National Bank. He's done a phenomenal job for us in the growth of our business. So back to vax mandates. Hold the line. And this is why, right? It comes down to 2 simple propositions, right? And that's always my theme, right? I believe that often, you're just going to have to choose between right and wrong, good and bad, evil and good. So, and here we are. Now you're choosing between evil and good. If you plan to never get the vaccine, and I kind of said that a little wonky, right? If you're not going to get the vaccine, then do not quit, do not resign. My personal opinion, my non-legal personal opinion. Hold the line. Why? Because of this. Right now, the propaganda that is being spewed out there is designed to scare you on 2 fronts. First and foremost, the powers to be, big pharma, big medicine, big U of RMC, right? They want to scare you into getting vaccinated. That's their first and foremost goal. They want you vaccinated. It puts money in their pocket. It wields their control over you, plain and simple. It doesn't do anything for you medically. We know that. It doesn't do anything for your neighbor, right? So when they try to make you out to be a bad guy, you don't care about your neighbor, you're not doing your part, blah, blah, blah. We know that doesn't make any sense, because we know that if you get the vaccine, you still could acquire viral load in your nose and sneeze and transmit it to your neighbor who's not masked because they went and got vaccinated. And then, yeah, maybe their symptoms, right? Maybe their symptoms won't be as bad, even though they weren't going to be that bad anyway. But they're still going to then in turn transmit it. And then that person, and then around and around and around we go. So they're trying to scare you into getting the vaccine, period. Or they're trying to scare you into resigning, quitting, right? What happens when you quit your job? What happens if you resign from your job as opposed to being terminated? Does the word unemployment ring a bell? Right? That's one aspect, one angle. The employer no longer has to worry about their unemployment rates going up because of mass unemployment filings. Let's say there's 300 nurses or 500 total staff members at URMC that plan on holding the line. And what happens if they all walk in on the 27th and say, I'm not quitting? Well, one of the things that I heard from a nurse is they're all on key pass entry. So they believe maybe they're key passes. Whatever, maybe, I don't know if that's what they're called. Their point of entry passes will be disconnected, turned off, canceled, whatever. So now you show up on the 27th and you go to swipe the tag on the door and you can't get in. And you lose all built up vacation time. Probably if you quit is where I'm going with this, Eric. If you quit or resign. So make them fire you. Make them terminate you. I don't know for sure if that will lead to the conclusion you might be looking for from an unemployment standpoint, unemployment benefits, or from potentially a lawsuit for wrongful termination. I'm not going to pretend to answer that question. But what I can state affirmatively is if you quit or if you resign in advance because they threatened you and you felt like you had no avenue out other than to quit or resign in advance of the 27th, in advance of D-Day, so to speak, well, then you've already dug your own grave at that point. You walked right into the trap that they're laying for you, right? They're smart people. They know how to lay the trap. You have to avoid walking into it. And right now they're laying two traps. The one trap is if we threaten these people's livelihood, which is just immoral and disgusting, but they don't care because they're immoral and disgusting people. But if we threaten their livelihood, then they'll go ahead and get vaccinated and they win and you lose because you don't have medical freedom, right? Or they'll just resign. They'll just quit. And then we don't have any blood on our hands. URMC, RGH, Unity Health System, whatever other, evil empires are out there that run our so-called private medical industry. We all think we still have private medicine in this country. That whole battle for socialized medicine, we lost that years ago. Those of you out there that still argue about socialized medicine, you're about 8 years behind the game. We've had socialized medicine for at least a decade now, if not longer. So, but that's where we're at. Hold the line. Now, there's just one sort of caveat to all of this. If you're just playing chicken right now, and ultimately if push comes to shove, you are going to get vaccinated, well, then so be it, right? Then you don't have to worry about anything I just said. Then you're going to go get vaccinated. And I'm not passing judgment one way or the other. I have no right to. You do what you have to do. All I'm trying to do is give you some objective advice for those of you that plan on holding the line. If you are 100% sure that you will not, under any circumstances, get vaccinated, then you need to hold the line. Let me see what Paula says here. Paula says, Chad, I think the only place that should mandate the vax is in the medical field. Why do you so disagree with that? If you're around vulnerable people, it's smart to get the vaccination. Well, Paula, that seems to make sense. I guess my question to you or to anyone with that take, and I'll give credit where credit's due. I mentioned Bob Lansbury earlier. I don't want to give the guy too many plugs here, but that same sort of question was posed to him last week, and his response I thought was spot on. And he said, well, these same individuals that you're referring to, these nurses, for example, that you want to be mandatorily vaxxed because they're in the medical field and they're around vulnerable people, they've been around those vulnerable people for 18 months and they've provided the very care that these people need. And I don't believe, and by I don't believe, I mean I'm quite certain that they have had no negative impact unvaccinated all these months. So these nurses, Nurse Jane, who's been unvaccinated since day one, has rendered that very care that you claim that needs to be rendered, and she hasn't killed anybody, right, that we know of. Governor Cuomo did, though. Government solutions have killed hundreds. Fact. Governor Cuomo, former Governor King asshole, mandated nursing homes to take in COVID positive patients. That was government policy. And what did that lead to? So again, why do you want to clamor for more government solutions like vaccine mandates to fix a simple issue? Right? A simple issue. If you don't want to get COVID, or if you want to lessen your risk for symptoms if and when you get COVID, then do other things like control your weight, eat healthier, get vitamin D. Oh, I know all that crazy conspiratorial type of stuff, like taking care of yourself. And look, please, I know I really truly know that sounded self-righteous. I get it. And I don't take care of myself as well as I'd like to either. None of us do, except for maybe John Hutchins. Again, I guess today's the day of shameless plugs for people. John's one of our routine listeners and followers. So anyway, take care of yourself. And again, I'm looking in the camera as I say that. Take care of yourself, guy in the weeds. Everybody can and should do a better job of taking care of their own health. And it is a fact. Again, I know people don't like facts because they get in the way of their narratives, but the facts are that if you are fit and healthy and at a good weight, and your heart is healthy, and you get some good cardiovascular exercise in and things like that, and you're under a certain age, then you are virtually at zero risk for having any sort of symptoms. Forget about death, right? Forget about death altogether. You're at virtually zero risk for suffering any more than, what you would suffer from the common cold if you're, under a certain age and of a certain, health stature. So there you have it. Let me just see what some of Paula's follow-ups were here. You make a good point. Thank you. I appreciate that. As a whole, we need to take better care of our own health. So, and I'll just kind of close on this. It's a couple minutes after 5 here. So, and I kind of I just kind of lost my train of thought. I was looking at my text message thread here. I shouldn't do that while I'm trying to talk to you folks. But so what I wanted to say is this. If it was all about our health, right? And again, this just goes back to the theme of the show: government solutions for private problems, right? Your health and your weight and your overall health stature is your private problem. It's not your neighbor's. It's not your government's. Period. End of story. It just isn't. It just isn't in any stretch of a society that wants to be free. Those are your personal choices, and you suffer the consequences thereof. But if it was about the government giving a shit about your health, and I heard Kimberly talk about this a little bit too, and I had been thinking about this, so it was great that she brought it up when I happened to tune in. I only tuned in for a couple minutes today, and I heard her and Tom talking about this issue on Kimberly's Revolution earlier. And that is that why doesn't the government come in and mandate how you eat, right? Like, look, you get to tell me, you're the progressive, you're the liberal, you're the Democrat, and you want the government to tell me how to take care of myself so that you can be healthier. And again, I hate to say it, folks, but those are the facts. If you actually plug logical facts into your narrative, it doesn't sound so great anymore. Your narrative doesn't sound so great anymore because your narrative is, well, this is about everybody's health. Well, the facts, though, are that you want the government to mandate me to do something that will supposedly in turn protect you. Well, if I take that to its logical conclusion, then I should clamor for the government to tell you to get healthy. Let's cut out the middleman. I'm the middleman. Why do you go through me to get to your health? What the hell do I have to do with your health? Take care of yourself first and foremost. And if you need the government to make you take care of yourself, that's on you, not me. Right? Do you want me to lobby with my power and my political capital, which I have none? Do you want me to lobby the government to force you not to eat fast food? Do you want me to lobby the government to force you to exercise so many times a week? Right? Why shouldn't I? That way you'll be healthier. We won't have overcrowded hospitals. Who goes to the hospital that's healthy? And when you go to the hospital, it's because you're sick. And you're not sick because the sick fairy came and waved a magic wand over your head. You're sick because of most likely choices that you made in your life. And you're free to make them. I get it. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with you freely not taking care of yourself, voluntarily forcing your body to become sick, and then you walking into a hospital and paying whatever ridiculous insurance premium that you decide you want to pay in order to have a doctor fix you when you're no longer healthy. That's all fine and good. But stay the hell out of my life. Stay the hell out of my health and freedom. Right? I mean, why can't we see eye to eye on that? Why can't both of those lines run parallel to each other? You do you and I do me. There you go. I just solved the whole problem with another cliche. You do you and I'll do me. And in a free society, when I see my neighbor in need, then I'll be free to offer my assistance and vice versa. But I'll leave you with this. I've always, and you know, and honestly, it's kind of changed over the years, but I'll just use my original example. I used to say it like this: the difference between a Republican and a Democrat are this. And quite frankly, it's not the difference between a Republican and a Democrat anymore, in my opinion, because I don't really think there's any difference. I think the Republicans and the Democrats they're all the same. They really are. They want control, they want power, and they want to make money off of running our lives. So, but I'll just say this: there's two different kinds of people. There's two different kinds of people. You're walking down the street. These two people are walking down the street, and a homeless guy walks up to these two people. And the homeless guy says, I want $1. I need $1. And the difference between these two people is the guy on the right, no pun intended, the guy on the right reaches into his own pocket and pulls $1 out and gives it to the homeless guy. And the guy on the left, again, no pun intended, the guy on the left, he reaches into the guy in the right's other pocket and gets $1 out and gives it to the homeless person. I think that's where we're at. So, all right, with that said, we're going to wrap things up here. This is Chad Hummel again. Thank you for tuning in on the Got Freedom Podcast, We the People Podcast Network. Please make sure that you go to our YouTube channel and to Facebook and find We the People Podcast Network. Find the Got Freedom Podcast and become a subscriber and click like and all that happy stuff. And we appreciate your support. So until next Tuesday at 4 p.m., I'm signing off here. Chad Hummel on the Got Freedom Podcast. Go America.